Welcome to the Gentleman's Guide to the Accursed. Among the sorcerers, one of the most disturbing families is the Memori. Now, the Memori would disagree with that particular review of their status, their objective, their origin. They would point at sorcerers that sacrifice flesh and blood, lives, and say, "You want disturbing? Look at those horror shows over there." But the Memori do something slightly different. You see, they traffic in absence, lost time, erased sentiment, the fragile architecture of memory itself. And their purported origins, whether true or not, are highly disturbing. What they're willing to give up for more and more power is highly disturbing. They aren't the only sorcerers who traffic in memories and could be classed as one of the forgetful sorcerers, but their possible ambition, their purported ambition, is what marks them out as truly disturbing. They don't simply gain their power through magic, they excavate it from the ruins of who they once were. There's no verified record marking the true beginning of the Memori, which in itself is suspicious. Many sorcerer families fastidiously chronicle their origins, their paths, their progenitors. The Memori are not quite so inclined. That's not to say there aren't some Memori who know, but while they do have archives, vast, obsessive, and meticulously cross-referenced, they contain only contradictions when it comes to origins. Some texts claim that the family formed during the first recorded wave of liminality. That's what they refer to it as, when the world first fractured, the first Memori was cursed. Others insist that Memori predate even that they originated in a prior version of the world entirely, one now inaccessible, locked behind a temporal ward. Now, the particularly unsettling theory, one very popularly purported among rival sorcerers, is that the Memori did not survive the first epochal collapse. Now, you may not know about epochs. Epochs are liminalities that are time-locked. They will often recur in loops, specific time periods where great calamities occurred, disasters, or things that shifted the course of the world in a particularly impressive fashion. These aren't always obvious. While there are known epochs, massive ones dedicated to periods such as the Great War, 9/11, and such like, there are others, small ones known as butterfly effect epochs, that you can explore for hours, days, months, and still not be able to tell why was this particular moment in time significant. The Memori are all over epochs, and epochs can collapse. Usually it's when the fabric of what keeps an epoch together starts eroding, and when it collapses in on itself, very few things survive. Now, some sorcerers allege that the Memori were trapped within one of these epochs, and they escaped, sort of. Part of them escaped. They forgot that they were there. They forgot their origins. Only what they are now emerged. According to this rumor, they're not even native to this reality. They are refugees from a dead timeline. An epoch opened up in another world that vented out into ours, making their existence here a kind of metaphysical error. If this is true, their obsession with returning to earlier epochs isn't just academic curiosity, it's homesickness, sharpened by mania and magic. Even within the family, certain names do recur in records spanning centuries, unchanged by time. But whether this reflects inheritance, imitation, or something far more peculiar isn't openly discussed. The Memori have motives. many motives, but most of them concentrate around epochs and heirlooms. On the surface, they present themselves as scholars and rescuers. They speak of saving those trapped in epochs, individuals left behind whenever reality resets, doomed to inhabit warped, decaying reflections of the world. They catalogue these lost souls, they map their prisons with clinical precision. It is very difficult to extract people from epochs, though the Memori are quite skilled at doing so. Beneath this stated mission, there is a trifecta of Memori branches. The Restorationists believe that reality deviated from its true form some time ago, and they seek a primordial convergence point, a moment where all timelines align, and they aim to reset existence entirely. To them, the current world is a mistake. It sounds like a noble idea, but imagine being the person, the people who are told by the Memori, you shouldn't be here. In fact, your existence is destabilizing the world, is threatening the existence of the world. So for the good of the world, we've hired this Zed to take you out. Please get your affairs in order. Thank you. Now, then you've got the confusingly named Archivists. Yes, there is already a sorcerer family known as the Archivists. The Memori have this brood known as the Archivists, either in mockery or, frankly, because they don't care that there is a family that shares that name. Believe me, the Archivists care, as in the family. This brood of Archivists, however, they're less idealistic, but no less unsettling. They view epochs as living museums, each one as a sealed terrarium of suffering and history. Their goal is total documentation, even if it means observing horrors without intervention, what they jokingly call the Prime Directive. The exploiters are whispered about even among the Memori. They treat epochs as resources. They harvest artifacts, they test magic on trapped populations, and equipment with paradoxes. Their work is officially condemned, but it's rarely stopped. What unites all of these factions is their refusal to accept the present as final. To a Memori, reality is provisional. It can and must be rewritten. Now, they weren't always known as the Memori. In times gone by, they were the academic cult of absence, which is a little more wordy. It flows less well than Memori. They changed, however, in the last 200 years to what they are now, and structure themselves less like a family and more like an academic institution. Hence the name. Titles matter, credentials matter. A Memori's name is often followed by an intimidating string of degrees, honours, and obscure affiliations. These aren't mere affectations, they're words of identity, fragile anchors against the erosion of self. And while they have a fluid internal hierarchy, it's quite possible to find curators, cartographers, ritualists, field scholars, and more. The curators maintain archives of known epochs. Cartographers, as the name implies, map liminal spaces. They try to identify their 0 points, what they call 0 points, how a liminality first occurred. Ritualists perform the sacrifices necessary to open up epochs, and then there's the field scholars. You've never encountered a group of sorcerers more prone to daredevil behaviour, or you could call it suicidal behaviour. You see, field scholars actually enter epochs, and they meddle with the people, the monsters, the fabric of what's within. And many field scholars never return. To some, the title of field scholar is a great honour. To others, it's something you're given when you piss off your uncle at family dinner. Meetings often resemble lectures or memorial services. A new discovery might be presented alongside a eulogy for a memory sacrificed in order to obtain it. It is, however, considered improper to ask what was lost, because doing so forces a colleague to confront an absence that they can no longer comprehend. Over time, many Memori develop what the outsiders refer to as the hollowness. They retain knowledge, but they lose context. They can recount a childhood home in perfect detail, but they feel nothing towards it. They may even fail to recognise why it mattered at all. Now, the Memori curse demands sacrifice not of body, but of meaning. To open a door into an epoch, many Memori would sacrifice something deeply personal, a memory, a cherished object, even the emotional resonance that ties them to a person or place. These sacrifices ultimately grant them access to heirlooms, strange, often mundane items imbued with impossible properties. A burnt photograph, the inhabitants of which can whisper to the bearer, maybe advice, maybe just curses. A wristwatch that ticks backwards whenever you're close to the opening of an epoch. A temporal fracture, if you will. A diary that rewrites itself depending on who holds it. But ultimately, the true horror lies in the cost. A Memori who sacrifices the memory of a loved one doesn't merely forget them. They erase the importance of that person from their identity. Relationships dissolve, motivations shift, entire mortal frameworks can collapse. Over decades, senior Memori become patchworks of disconnected facts. Their humanity thins to a brittle shell. Now, some attempt to preserve themselves by externalizing their memories, recording them obsessively in journals, audio logs, or enchanted archives. But these records are imperfect substitutes. Reading about a lost memory is not the same as possessing it. The result is a haunting dissonance. A scholar studying the life of a stranger, only to realize that the subject is themselves. Now, the Memori's greatest secret is also their greatest terror. They may not be studying epochs as detached observers. They may be participants in cycles that they don't understand. Patterns have been noted, though they don't always acknowledge them. Certain symbols recur across unrelated epochs. Identical phrases in completely disconnected epochs appear in the writings of people who could have never met one another. In rare cases, a Memori entering an epoch has actually encountered themselves. Not a version shaped by different choices, but an exact duplicate, complete with identical gaps in their memory. More disturbingly, there are records, fragmentary, heavily redacted by the family, of doors opening from within epochs without external ritual, leading to somewhere even deeper. This suggests that someone, something, trapped inside has learned to manipulate the same forces that a Memori would dearly love to control. If that's true, then the boundary between observer and prisoner is far thinner than the family believes. You know, the Memori insist that nothing is ever truly lost. It is their creed, their justification, their defiance against a reality that erases and resets without explanation. But there is a question none of them can answer, and few of them dare to ask it. If every sacrifice removes a piece of who they are, and those pieces aren't destroyed, where do they go? Some claim that deep within certain epochs there are places where the air hums with half-remembered voices, where photographs show faces no one can name, where entire landscapes seem constructed from fragments of forgotten lives. Places that feel unmistakably alive. And in those places, it's said that the lost memories of the Memori are not lost. They're just waiting for their former owners to come to them, to become one with them, to return to the source from whence they came. Thank you very much for watching.